Welcome to Lead for Good, a podcast for nonprofit leaders of all titles and all experience levels. This is a show where the audience will meet and get to know top nonprofit leaders. Together, we will take a deep dive into nonprofit leadership, endeavoring to uncover and unpack the most important characteristics, traits, strategies, and actions of successful nonprofit leaders. Through this journey together, we desire to help you, the nonprofit leader, grow your knowledge and capabilities to lead for good. We want you to achieve your full potential as leaders in the sector. So, welcome to the conversation. We're glad you joined us today. Without further delay, let's join our host, Chris Looney, as he interviews yet another extraordinary leader who is truly leading for good. Enjoy the show.
Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining the show. Today on Lead for Good, I'm joined by Baron King, CEO of the CHATT Foundation, an organization dedicated to meeting the most basic needs of hungry, homeless, and vulnerable people while offering a clear path to self-sufficiency, and with a vision to be a leader in resolving homelessness by walking with individuals throughout their journey to independence. CHATT Foundation embodies a holistic, human-centered approach to community transformation. And Baron's own journey reflects that same depth of purpose. He began his leadership career in the retail industry, moving from an entry-level store manager to a regional manager focused on organizational dynamics and culture change. After more than a decade in retail, he pivoted to psychology, earning a graduate degree and leading a university mental health center before taking the helm of a large nonprofit. And across all of these chapters, one insight has remained constant for Baron: the importance of having a psychological framework for leadership. Psychological framework for leadership is the topic today. He believes that understanding people deeply, anticipating how they'll experience challenges, and leading with empathy are the cornerstones of sustainable organizational health. I know this is going to be a fascinating conversation, so let's jump in. Welcome to the show, Baron. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Chris.
Yeah, thank you. And before diving into this topic of psychological leadership, that framework, I did want to learn more about you and your leadership journey. So why don't you tell us a little bit about how you became the leader you are today?
I look at it today much differently than I did 35 years ago. 35 years ago, I didn't have a vision for what I wanted to do, where I wanted to go. I took a job because I hoped I could do it. I think one consistent element of my career path is I've often taken jobs where I really didn't know what I was doing, and I figured it out along the way. But a lot of that, I have to thank a variety of people that were alongside of me that helped to grow me, challenge me. I definitely would not be the person today that I am without a lot of influence, and I never let myself forget that.
No, it's awesome. And that is one of my questions. Who are those individuals that influenced you? How did they influence you? Why were they so important? If you don't mind, you don't have to name names, right? But tell us a little bit about these positive role models, these influences.
Three of them really stick out. First one was my first boss in retail. I'd gotten promoted to my first management position. Looking back, they didn't tell me what to do or how to do it. It was simply, we need you to fill this role. I was fairly young at the time. I was 24 years old. I didn't know what I didn't know.
Right.
And so I thought I was doing a great job. And one day one complication was I was promoted within the department, within the same team of people that I'd been working with.
Right.
And evidently I wasn't doing a good job, because one day my boss came, pulled me aside and said, your team hates you. You're losing them. And I was stunned.
Wow.
It was probably, it was the worst news I could have had. But then he said, we can fix this. And he took a lot of time in those next 18 months working with me, and doing the things, helping open my eyes to how people were perceiving me, how my style of communication was being ineffective, and he really righted the ship. And so he was influential. Another
What was your
gentleman.
immediate reaction, real quick, Baron? Like, how did you respond as a an individual? Was this something that knocked you down to the ground? Was it something that you felt was offensive? Did you have to check yourself? Did you get angry? Like, I'm just interested.
My heart sunk. I can still remember the physiological reaction to hearing those words.
Okay.
I think we all deal with imposter syndrome, and I was newly promoted, trying to really do it, and then to kind of hear from somebody that you trust and you respect that you're failing, that's a tough message. And I think if that conversation had ended there, I don't think I would have been able to progress. But what he said next was really important. We can fix this, and I'm with you. And so at that point, I didn't have much of a choice, and
No,
I'm
right.
thankful I didn't. So, but
Yeah.
yeah, it was very sobering. I wasn't angry. I was probably very disappointed in myself, to be honest. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. I only ask because I think how we respond to the
yeah,
challenges in our life, young or old, defines how we're going to recover and how we learn and grow and how we move forward. So thanks.
yeah.
Yeah. So who else is on that list?
So the next person was the CEO of the next organization I worked for, and he was a very dynamic man. He was a lawyer that had decided to create a startup big box company. I won't name the company, but you've probably all been in one of these before. And he was the biggest change agent I've ever met, and he drilled into us our need to constantly evaluate what we're doing and whether or
Mm,
not we need to keep doing it. We need to know our competitors better than they know themselves and find out what they're doing that works. But the thing that really sticks in my mind was what he said about change. He said, people resist change. They It makes them uncomfortable. They want to resist it. And when you talk to them about change, what you see these micro steps towards um, a willingness to consider change. And what he said that doesn't do it. He said you have to embrace a culture of change because companies across the board that don't change, they become dinosaurs and they die off. And I've carried that with me throughout every step of my career. We still talk about it here. At CHATT Foundation, we offer over 30 services um, to people experiencing homelessness, and we've become very good at filling gaps, identifying and filling gaps.
right.
But when we're looking to potentially add a service or add something to our organization, what I'm always challenging everybody is there something we're doing that we don't need to do anymore? Is it no longer a need? Is it a service fulfilled by some other organization? Should we hand this off to somebody else? And so
Right.
I really believe that consistently and constantly reevaluating what you're doing and why you're doing it is one of the more critical things you can do in leadership.
Yeah, no, that's wonderful. Such good advice. The constantly evaluate yourself and ways to do things better. I love that. Embrace that culture of change. So powerful. So
I got
good.
I got one more.
Please, yeah.
He was my clinical supervisor in grad school, and we ended up working together for 12 years, side by side. He's a uh, brilliant psychologist. And I remember in clinical supervision where I'm sitting there with five peers and I'm having to review a case, and it's often very anxiety ridden because it feels like a competition. Uh, you're challenged to bring a case that you're needing advice on, but you don't want to bring something that makes you look stupid. So there's this dynamic
Get it?
tension
Sure.
where you're trying to get help, but you're trying to avoid exposure. And so I presented the case, I was getting feedback, and then Dr. Black asked me a question that I hadn't considered, and I was stunned and I was silent. And there was probably 4 or 5 seconds of silence right after that that probably felt like 90 minutes.
Yep.
And I was like, how do I handle this without embarrassing myself? And he was the first person to fill that silence. And he looked at me and he said, Baron, I don't know is always a perfectly good answer. And what really impacted me with that was what I needed to hear in that moment. And he was able to give important feedback while avoiding triggering any shame responses in myself.
Right.
And I sat back and I thought, you know what, that's the best advice I think I've heard in a long time. And
Yes.
so, yeah, I can't say enough. The people that have walked alongside me, spoken truth to me, challenged me, encouraged me, have made huge impact in my life.
That's great. I mean, I think we could end the podcast right there with the kind of advice and knowledge from a leadership perspective that you just dropped on us. Such good things for the audience to think about and consider and really to sink in and embrace. So thank you. One of the things I'd love to know is what your favorite professional role has been. Not your favorite position. I mean, I think that's unfair, but what's the thing that you just love to do in leadership and what's made that so meaningful for you?
Yeah, after I completed grad school, I got a job working for a university, and I went into grad school thinking I'm tired of management, I'm tired of the retail industry, I'm going to leave that all behind, I'm just going to do therapy. Well, I got this job largely not because I was a brilliant therapist, because quite honestly, I was a new green therapist trying to be brilliant. The person that hired me said, we're putting you in this role of running this counseling clinic basically because we want to grow it, expand it, and improve it. And we like your management skills. And I'm thinking, oh, you got to be kidding me.
Hmm.
They hired me
Right.
for a management position.
Right.
But I was able to teach on the adjunct level. I was able to train and develop graduate interns. And I was able to just really soak in a field that I'm quite passionate about. And I think one of the constants throughout my entire journey is I really love teaching, training, and developing people. A lot of people that get
Teaching,
into
training, and
nonprofit,
developing people. Sorry, I had to, I just like
yeah,
I mean, it's so simple, right? Teaching, training, and developing
yeah.
people. Thanks.
I think I'm a little bit different than a lot of people in nonprofit. A lot of the people that I know in nonprofit, they pick a cause and they may work for different organizations, but maybe it's always autism or it's always food insecurity. To me, it's the cause is secondary to my desire to create really well-functioning teams that can provide excellent service to vulnerable populations. That's what I'm all about. If I can come in and either grow an organization or uh, create a well-functioning culture to rid out dysfunction, that's what I get excited about.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. So what would you say is the philosophy that you've developed maybe as you've had all of these leadership roles? Is there a particular sort of thought pattern that you have around nonprofit leadership, or is there a set of um, values or philosophies that you have as you think about, how you lead?
Yeah, I like to think that what I try and create is an environment where people are able to be free to speak, be free to take initiative. Um, and I try and really I rely on a lot of skills that I used for 20 years in the therapist chair of
Mm,
making people feel comfortable, making people understand that they're valued and important, being able to ask a lot of questions. I think that's something that's real simple that a lot of people don't do. I spend a lot of time looking at people's body language, whether it's in staff meetings or one-on-ones. I like to know about the person to a depth where I can kind of understand how they make decisions because everybody on my team is a little bit different. Their motivations
mm,
are different, their past experiences are different, their self-awareness. is either strong or it's lacking. And over time, I really feel like I can understand a person pretty well, and that helps me anticipate how they're going to respond in certain situations. I've got a rule with my staff that I like to know everything that's going on in their area, not because I want to micromanage or make the decisions, but I want to know the challenges, the successes, the problems, and I want to see and watch them make decisions and figure things out. After a while, you get a pretty good read on how a team member is going to handle a certain crisis or encounter, and whether or not you can say with some certainty they're going to be successful or they're going to find it challenging. And so, and I think there's another aspect. When you're in leadership, there's times where you have to get involved in correcting actions or behavior or dealing with mistakes or problems. And I think it's really critical um, that those discussions happen in an environment that doesn't feel threatening to the individual.
Right.
If you think about people, people don't like being exposed.
Right.
They don't like being criticized. Yeah, I've been in organizations that when I stepped into them were very fear-based, and people um, would blame shift and try and hide mistakes. And to me, I think that's the worst thing an organization can do is work in silos where everybody's pointing fingers. Um, I had a situation, my last nonprofit that I walked into was very siloed, fairly dysfunctional. A lot of blaming would go on. And it was probably about 2 months into my time there, and we were having a leadership team meeting. And I decided to shake things up, and I said, I need to share with you all a mistake that I made last week. And so I talked about the mistake, how I made it, why I made it, what I learned
Yep.
from it. And you could see visibly on half of the faces that they did not know what they were sitting in. They did not know where this was going. It was very uncomfortable. And so I said, well, why do you think I'm sharing this with you all? And no, didn't have any takers on that. I said, look, if I was worried about what you thought of me, or if I needed you to think that I was flawless, then I wouldn't have shared this with you. There'd be no point in it. But this mistake I made was a huge learning opportunity for me. And how selfish would it be if I kept that to myself? I mean, I don't want you guys making the same mistake. And and so here's the rule, guys. If you make a mistake, bring it to me immediately. We'll dissect it. We'll talk about it. We'll make sense of it. We'll fix the problem. We'll move on, because why should we all be making the same mistakes over and over again?
Right.
I said,
Yes.
but if you make a mistake or there's a problem and you don't let me know about it, now we have a problem. Yeah.
That's right. That's right.
And
So
that was, I think with that organization, that was the very beginning of a big shift in how we work together as a team. Yeah. Yeah,
that's
kind of
fascinating.
encouraging vulnerability really is what you're doing.
That's good. And you did it in a way that was um, a little unusual in that you were being the first one to be vulnerable, right? The first
Yeah.
one to admitting a mistake, the taking a different tack that I think is brilliant, really, and great advice, I think, for a lot of leaders in how to change culture, but doing it in a way that doesn't take a sledgehammer to the culture you have.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
it just massages things around the edges a bit, and shows leadership from the top. I feel like it's funny. It feels like we've already gotten into the discussion on the psychological framework of leadership prematurely, but it's not. It's great, and I want to dig in now to
Yeah.
that. But before I do, I did want to just give you an opportunity to promote your new podcast called "Give Me Shelter." Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so I work in the homelessness support field, and I get a lot of opportunities to speak to individuals, talk about the topic. And what I find is most people are 1 or 2 degrees removed from the reality of homelessness, and so there's a lot of knowledge gaps with this subject. There's a lot of biases or misunderstandings and myths. And so what we wanted to do was to try and get everybody on the same page with what are informed conversations regarding the causes of homelessness and what are some progressive solutions? What are some ways that we can really uh, scale some interventions that are very effective across this nation and really make a significant reduction in homelessness. And so each episode takes a different topic. The first one is up now on any of your streaming services. It's called Housing 101, and it talks about the housing market and why we are in the middle of a homeless crisis. And so subsequent topics next Tuesday is the lenses we use, and that really is more of um, kind of a psychology-driven look at what gets in the way of us understanding the problem effectively. Because we don't understand a problem effectively, it really limits our ability to find progressive solutions.
Yeah,
Yeah,
thank you.
yeah, thank you.
A dumb person's question. I know there's no dumb people, dumb questions, but how does the term homelessness versus unhoused work today? What's the current philosophy? I know this is so basic, but we
Yeah,
get tripped up in terminology all the time, and I struggle because I got corrected
yeah.
by my wife the other day saying, no, it's unhoused.
Yeah, we typically what we avoid is labeling people as homeless because we feel like that's not really an effective way to talk about a person. But individuals
Experiencing.
experiencing homelessness or unhoused individuals.
I see. That's a distinction. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you're really saying the same thing. I think depending on who you're interacting with, they're either going to be fine with either term, or one may be more comfortable for them or the other. I think there's some generational gaps that people respond differently at certain ages.
Sure.
Um,
Sure.
but yeah, it's
And of course, it's how you approach the subject, what your intentions are,
yeah,
for good or for not. So
yeah,
there's just so much. I guess I surfaced that question because there's a little bit of fear about even talking about it because you don't want to say the wrong thing. And to your point, there is a gap. There's just misunderstandings. There's
yeah.
people that almost criminalize it unfairly. And
Literally,
literally criminalize it when it's something that was at times unavoidable.
yeah,
These,
yeah,
I've had enough experience in the fundraising world to work with the homeless situation, the unhoused, and to know that the percentage of people that are just one big event, whether it's a job loss or it's a medical challenge or something from living in their car, living on the
yeah.
street, is so scary, and we're all vulnerable. So
Exactly. And I know where you are in California, there's probably not another state in the nation that is having um, a crisis the size that you all are, and our hearts go out to all of you because it's a big challenge. Yeah,
it's getting worse. I mean,
yeah,
it's amazing how unaffordable
yeah,
housing is in the state, and I don't, I don't have any concept of how so many people survive with the economic realities that exist in the state. So,
yeah,
but at the same time, there's such a heart for the vast majority of people to do what they can to help,
yeah,
and hopefully there'll be some reasonable solutions as well. So
yeah,
it's tough. You're in such a tough role and with such a tough issue that's so pervasive and we haven't, figured it out yet, right?
We haven't. We haven't.
Yeah, yeah. Well, keep doing the good work that you do. So let's get back on topic,
Yeah.
which is all about the psychological framework of leadership. And I'm so excited to learn more. I feel like we've already started with you sharing how you embraced your therapist kind of lens, bringing that into the leadership realm. But can you tell us what you mean by psychological framework for leadership, just to kick us off?
Yeah, I mean, at its core, at its basic, what you're trying to do is build a foundation of trust, respect, and clear communication.
Mm,
Um, Make it easy for people to do their job, easy to talk about their job, where you encourage dissenting of opinions, where the leader doesn't feel like he has to be or she has to be the expert on every topic related to your organization. I think doing simple things like taking time to walk out into kind of the frontline areas of my organization and spend time with some of the individuals that are really doing the heavy lifting and ask them, what do they think? We're really fortunate here at CHATT Foundation in the fact that 40% of our staff has either a former or current lived experience of homelessness. And um, I think they know that I really value that. I value their journey, their struggles, their insight. Um, and I think it's really important that we create a framework that utilizes all of that. One of the first things I did here, I think I have a habit of taking jobs where the board of directors tells me that this is only an upward facing position and everything in the operation works fine. And then I get into work and I realize, okay, this organization's held together by 35 years of institutional duct tape. And there's
very
some
good.
fixes. And so one of the things I learned when I got here, this organization had gone through 18 months with a leadership void. And the people that were holding it together were running their own departments. And
Hmm.
so there wasn't really one unifying voice. Um, there is some dysfunction here. And I really realized that there's a lot of unhappy people here. And so I challenged our managers and directors and eventually the whole staff to drop in my mailbox a piece of paper with 5 workplace values that were the most important things to them. I wanted them to think of 5 things, like if you could wave a magic wand over this place and 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 change the culture or change the value system, what things would pop out? And then I took all that data and collated it, and it was interesting because most of the responses were very similar. And we created a word cloud that we have throughout the organization. And respect, transparency, compassion, and consistency were the top 4.
Can you say this again?
Respect, respect, transparency, compassion, and consistency. And this was coming from the lens of how they wanted to be treated.
Right.
And so, we start talking about what that would look like in the workplace, what they needed to feel that. But what I started realizing was we all want to be treated that way. We want to work in a place that's that way. I bet this isn't too different from the values that we should be using to serve the population that we're serving. So
Okay.
we took it a step further to say, this isn't just something we're here to consume. This is something this should also indicate how we're working with each other, how we're working
Hmm.
with different people. And I think slowly over time we've started to make progress in getting in that direction. I think modeling vulnerability is really important.
Okay.
Um, I I think I wake up every day feeling like I'm doing good work, but I'm still a flawed individual, right? I think if
Sure.
we're all honest, we probably all we most humans spend a lot of energy trying to project what they see as strengths or skills and try and
Mhm.
hide or obscure vulnerabilities. And I
Right.
think when you can be comfortable in your own skin, to talk about what you're not good at, to ask for help, I think that's huge. Um, I think another aspect is how we respond to challenges. We had a unique situation happen this year in that we typically receive about $375,000 in federal funding from HUD, and this year uh, it was reduced to $48,000. And quite honestly, the hoops and hurdles you have to go through to work with HUD is not worth $48,000.
Right, right,
It's more trouble than it's worth. So we announced that we were withdrawing from HUD funding, which left a pretty significant gap in funding. And when I was informing the team of this, I was like, okay, listen, we provide over 30 services to homeless individuals. Only one of them is HUD funded. So we're not going to stop being CHATT Foundation, but we do need to start thinking about how we're going to do this differently.
Mhm.
And I remember going back to when I took my other organization through COVID, and it was the same type of thing. I didn't know what the answers were.
Right.
Yeah, I was scared for the life of the organization, but in the end, we came out stronger and better from it. And so I just applied that same lesson to this to say, hey, if people are reading me as ticked off at HUD or upset or scared or worried, man, that's going to reverberate through the whole organization. So I was kind of upbeat and excited and say, how are we going to do this differently? How are we going to do this
Yeah,
better?
yeah.
I think that's important.
And this is something that you brought sort of from your background in psychology, background as a
Well,
therapist?
I think this goes back to that second example of mentorship, that change agent I work for. It's like we don't have any time to boo-hoo about this or lament what could have been. It's time to this enables this organization to be on the forefront of changing some of how we do things. There's some organizations in our community that did receive their full funding, and quite honestly, when you look at some of the actions of the federal government, I'm not sure they're going to get their reimbursement in 2026. Like
Right,
I have
right.
I would rather know now that I'm not getting money than to spend $375,000 and then not get reimbursed next year.
100%. Yeah.
That would be a challenge. So how we face challenges, you know, honesty, transparency, being upbeat. This is a great opportunity for change.
Why do you think
Uh,
it's why do you think it's so difficult for leaders to kind of respond this way? You had
People are worried.
mentioned, say again.
I think people are worried.
Yeah. Fair. Yeah. The
Yeah.
fear.
If I tell them how bad it is, they'll leave. But I think
Mhm.
it's if we frame the challenge in a way um, that minimizes the fear and the ambiguity of it. In my mind, this is my belief that the reason people hate change so much is it creates this internal experience of ambiguity. Human beings like being sure of things. We like knowing. We like consistency. We don't like being confused or switched. And when you talk about change, you're really inviting people into a place of ambiguity. And
Mm.
um, I think you can really build up some tolerance against that feeling by having reps and being all in together and being able to talk about it. It's like being that little kid and you're scared that there's a monster under the bed. What's the best thing to do? Start talking about what's under the bed.
Mm. That's
Yeah,
fascinating. Yeah.
yeah,
That that seems like a very proven therapeutic answer. I don't know, like that 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 definitely seems like something a therapist would say to me if I came to them with a challenge, right?
yeah,
Name it, proclaim it, work through
yeah,
it,
yeah.
talk to someone about it, that kind of thing, right?
And I think normalizing people's experiences. If somebody expresses an opinion that says, "No, I'm really scared about this new approach for this change," say, "I get that. That makes sense.
Yeah, yeah,
I think I get
totally
that."
normal.
Yeah, don't try and shame that they're they're scared.
Right.
They just need more reps at this.
Very good. Reps. I love that. Well, how do you read and interpret this sort of emotional or psychological pulse of your team? How does a leader come to understand what's going on?
When when you're a therapist and you're meeting with clients on a weekly basis, and you're really listening and you're really watching, really paying attention, um, maybe you've worked with them for 6 months or 9 months, and they come in, you can spot changes pretty easily. Changes in appearance, change in posture, change in facial structure, in what they're talking about. I would encourage everybody to really get to know every single person on your team,
Hmm.
because there's always clues to how they're doing. Are they doing well? Are they struggling?
Yeah.
Um, do they feel like they're heard, they're cared for? Those are really big things. We had a situation the other day where we have somebody that's worked with us that's gone through some personal challenge, pretty significant personal challenges. And this person's come back to work full time, but was missing some time, not able to fulfill or schedule or meet all the things that were on her to-do list. And she sent me her resignation. And it was out of, I think, feeling like she was letting the organization down. And I gave it some thought and I got with her and I said, you know what, I don't know, I'm not ready to accept this. This feels like you're doing this on our behalf. Um, and I'd like you to take the weekend, maybe the next day or two of work, and really think whether or not this is the best option, because I'm not sure that a dichotomous decision of stay or go is the right answer. Maybe we need to change the way your shifts work or change your roles and responsibilities. But we care for you, we value you. I'd hate to see you leave. Um, that person's still here. And I think, you know, gosh, we just don't have a level playing field in our day to day. I have times where I'm going through a crisis and I realize that I may not be my best self on those days. And
Hmm.
kind of Irvin Yalom, who's a California guy, one of my favorite psychologists, always says every person we encounter is dealing with something tremendously challenging that we know nothing about. And
Right.
if we met everybody that we encountered and realized everybody's dealing with something major and we don't know what that is, then that gives a little context to what it means being a human and trying to be a professional at the same time.
And a lot more grace than you would otherwise give.
Yeah.
Um, how do you identify these warning signs? What do you look for, um, either individually or organizationally? That
Yeah, I think a big part of that is behavioral change, is a big part of that. Changes in what their norm is, whether it's the quality of the work or the focus of the work or how they're spending their time, um, uh, how they feel about the organization. I think that's a big thing. I've seen people get really, really bitter about an organization, and um, sometimes you need to take that step back and say, "Hey, we really value you. We want you to be happy here. What do you need from me to be happy here? Or what do you need from yourself to be happy here?" And just being able to invite those conversations.
hmm
I think I'm a big believer that those conversations, if they're going to be effective, need to be really non-threatening. Um, when I was going through, when I was training graduate psychologists, some people would come into the field with this mindset that they're the psychologists, so they're up here, they have the knowledge and the wisdom, and they're just going to work with people down here, and I'm going to tell you what you need to do. Um, and I don't think that that's really the most effective approach with working with somebody. To me, my mindset is I'm like a guide on a trail. Um, I may know this trail a little bit better than you, but I still have to hike it. I still have to navigate it, and we can do this
You
side
never
by
know if the
side.
bear, yeah, that you never know if the bear is going to come out.
Yeah, we can walk by side on this, and we're just going to support each other along the way. And I may know some things about what's around this turn that you may not know, but that doesn't make me at a different level than you are. And so I try and eliminate when you're in leadership, especially senior leadership, it creates some obstacles to being able to communicate clearly with the people that you work with, and then to communicate clearly. People can be scared talking to the CEO or the executive director. What will they think of me? How will they respond to me? And so I think it's my responsibility to create a very comfortable environment where people can just be honest and open and transparent.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what's on their word cloud. That's what they want. So I've got
Yeah.
to do what I can to create that. Yeah.
No, I get it. Well, and then you add in the trauma and resilience and all of the challenges that are tied to the work that you do around homelessness and everything that's associated with it. So how do you kind of guide your team, with that layer of emotional demand that's part of their work as well? That has to, it seems like that has to be um, an additional layer of challenge that wouldn't
It
normally
is.
be
And
present in sort of the for-profit retail world, let's say, maybe.
yeah, it is a challenge. And I think what makes our unique situation a little bit differently in our organization, we have a wide range of education and experiences. We have a staff of 52. I have couple PhDs on my team, and I have a handful of people that didn't complete high school. And so being able to communicate consistently and effectively over a wide range of experiences and education can be challenging. Our frontline workers are the ones that I think have a significant amount of challenge. You would like to think that when you're in nonprofit work and you're providing a service to vulnerable people, you would love it if everybody was thankful. And that's just not always the case. And
Yeah, sure.
so we have people that are, not making the highest wage, doing some of the hardest jobs, and, and serving people that aren't always grateful or thankful. And so understanding that there's going to be that emotional deficit, I look at it like a bank account. With a bank account, you deposit things in and then you can write checks. That's money going out. And so if people are constantly writing checks by giving of themselves out to others, if they don't have deposits going into them from some direction,
Yeah.
um, they're gonna be in the red. And so trying to find ways to make sure that they're valued, appreciated, thanking them. I try and make it do this a couple times a day is just stop what I'm doing. Our facility is an entire city block long. We have a gigantic facility. We've got apartment complexes, we've got thrift stores, we've got case management, a kitchen, a dining room, community center. And so it takes a while to walk through, but doing that on a consistent basis, talking with people, checking in, looking them in the face, knowing their name, asking about how's your wife doing? I heard she was sick, those types of things. That makes a big difference, especially in nonprofit where, quite honestly, we know we're not paying the highest wages, right? I think in the for-profit world, it's cold, it's hard, but everybody's like, hey, we're paying you a lot of money, buck up and do the job. Here, it's
Right.
like, we know you're doing what you're passionate about. We wish, everybody could make a higher wage. We're working on that, but how are you doing today? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And is there difficulty balancing empathy empathy for your employee situation, your staff situation, or for the clients you're serving with that accountability? Like from a psychological perspective, how do you balance that empathy with accountability?
Honestly, I think the way we handle it is by really working really hard at identifying the right people to bring on the team in the first place.
Okay.
I think that goes a long way. Occasionally, we've had people that we thought were the right fit, and then you turn around and you see them getting in a verbal altercation with the people we're trying to serve, and then you realize, okay, this probably isn't a really good place. I think a lot about effective nonprofit leadership is trying to get everybody on the bus in the right seat. And we've had situations where because we've hired a number of people with lived experience of homelessness. Um, you would expect all of them to have maybe more empathy to those that are homeless, but that's not always the case. We have people that know some of the people on the street and they don't like them and they've never gotten along, and so there can be a lot of conflict there. And so we've had to move people from different departments just to kind of manage that process.
Right.
But that's part of getting everybody in the right seat.
Yeah, and I can understand those challenges. They're normal, just everyday work environment challenges. So why
Yep,
would it be any different, right? Just
yep,
because of
yep.
the nature of the business. Is there a particular advice that you would give nonprofit leaders who are interested in integrating psychological awareness into
Yeah,
culture?
yeah. There's some resources out there that I think would at least provide kind of a framework to evaluate your organization in, a framework of what can we do as far as setting culture or addressing issues within the workplace. One is a book by Timothy Clark. It's called The Four Stages of Psychological Safety.
Okay.
It's a real easy read. Timothy Clark is the author. I think that's a great resource for really any leader. And then the Harvard Business School and Amy Edmondson have done a lot of work on this topic of psychological safety in the workplace. So anything by Amy Edmondson is pretty good stuff.
That's great. That's
Yeah.
great. It's it seems like a lot of this connects to change. And you mentioned before the challenge of change. You spent a career helping organizations change. There's psychological barriers, trying to evolve. I'm interested in kind of understanding how you create a sense of safety during those transitions, still holding people to high standards. Like what recommendations, what advice would you give in those times of necessary change to, build resilience, to effectuate positive cultural change?
I I don't know if this is really an effective answer, but I'll tell you what I do is I just make it an open conversation. Just really talk about it a lot. I think that I had a client one time. This was in group therapy, and we had this one young lady that was very quiet, very shy, wouldn't share anything. Um, and I was trying to every session I'd try and say, is this the right time to try and draw her out? And she came into the group one time, and you could tell visually that uh, something was different with her. And she started the session, and she just imploded. And it was messy, it was loud, it was shocking for some of the people. Um, and then she kind of started to pull herself together. And I said, I really appreciate you sharing. That must have been really hard to share. I think we've all been wondering, um, how you've been, why we don't hear much from her. I said, well, what was that like sharing that? That must have, it seems like it was very brave. What was that like? And she said something to me that was really profound. She said, it wasn't nearly as bad coming out of my mouth as it's been rattling around in my head.
Right. Yeah.
And, I think when things stay inside our head, they develop a certain amount of power that doesn't really serve us all that well.
Right.
And I think once we get that thing in our head out of our mouth and it's received without judgment, without shame, it's just received. Um, I think there's a tremendous amount of relief.
Yeah.
And I think we give power back to those individuals. And so I think that if I give one thing to take away is I think when we talk about working with our teams and developing people is what do you need to do to be the safest place on earth for everybody on your staff?
That's great.
I mean, think about it. There's probably people in your life that you feel like are really safe people. And there's probably other people that you say, "Ooh, I don't know that I would share X, Y, and Z with them." Um,
100%.
and so, what can you do as a leader to be the safest place on earth for every single person on your staff?
Hmm. Yeah. Um, I know it's not a rhetorical question. There's a lot that you would need to do.
Yeah.
And and I think you could spend another several hours unpacking all the things that you as a leader can do. Do you have any like just short, quick kind of guidance and advice on that? I mean, I literally that's a huge topic, right? How do you create that emotional, psychological safety for employees, for staff, for others, right? Any quick,
Yeah, I think it starts with being vulnerable and being available. I think those are the two things. If people thought that, boy, Barron has it all together, that wouldn't make me very approachable, right?
right? Oh,
We,
he's so perfect. He's so
yeah,
perfect. Like
he
he
won't
doesn't
get me, he won't
understand.
understand me. And so,
Yeah.
um, me asking for advice or direction on something that I'm not an expert on, me sharing when I've made a mistake, me saying, I'm sorry, I just don't understand this, or I'm not very good at this. That breaks down barriers. But then being very purposefully interested in other people, I think is really important. Get past the small talk of, hey, how was your weekend? Or, have a good night, that type of thing. But really get to know them, find out what motivates them, what
Yeah.
they're afraid of, what are their past experiences. Um,
Do you feel like you can accomplish that in the office? Uh, is there enough
um,
time to be able to
no,
do that? Do you have to extend your outreach beyond office hours to accomplish that? I'm
yeah,
saying like, do you have to go
yeah.
out to dinner with the team? Do you have to intentionally work outside the normal office hours to be able to get in that connected?
No, I haven't had to do that. Anytime there's turnover, it does feel like you're kind of starting over with
Yeah,
people.
sure. Uh-huh. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so
And you got a lot of people.
you never really get to the place where you know everybody and you don't have to do that anymore. But I think, everybody's probably familiar with the term management by walking around. Um, when I walk around, it's primarily to engage the people on our team and the participants that we serve. We don't call them clients, we call them participants. Um, and, um, and then I'm also looking at, the facilities and um, my eyes invariably go to pieces of paper signs taped onto a door, which absolutely drives me nuts. But yeah, I think my main job is um, the staff, and are they happy? Are they satisfied? Are they challenged? Do they feel like they're making a difference? I think it's Richard Branson that said, anybody that says the customer is first or most important is wrong. It's your team because if your team feels like you're valued and treated well, then your organization is going to win over every customer.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I think that's really sage advice.
Yeah. Well, you joked that you don't have a therapy practice anymore, but you do have a company full of clients.
Yeah.
And and I think we've heard a lot on this podcast so far about what that means, But I'd love to kind of understand how that mindset has helped you in this CEO role, in this leadership role.
Yeah, I think that everybody is in development. I haven't arrived. I'm still learning. I'm still um, trying to improve areas of myself. And so that's the lens that I look at everybody with. And so if I can be a part of that in um, being able to bring up a subject that maybe people don't typically like to talk about because it makes people comfortable, but I'm just going to go ahead and bring it up and then all of a sudden we make that conversation not as awkward as it could be. I think things like that can really make a big difference.
Yeah.
I had somebody on my team that um, believes that they're really an effective strategic thinker. And my observation over several years is that's not really their strength. Their strength is really very tactical, very uh, eyes down on a project, quality project beginning to end. But they're not really operating at a 25,000 foot view. And so um, what I've kind of decided is, all right, instead of just me trying to convince them that they're not a strategic thinker, let me try and find out what's getting in the way of them being able to do both. Because I think somebody that can think tactically and strategically is a pretty important asset to the organization.
Right.
And so, I've kind of put it in my head as, okay, when I have opportunities to give maybe a project that requires some strategic thinking, I'm going to assign that, and then I'm going to try and see how we do and try and see what gets in the way of that. Kind of like doing a little behavioral experiment along the way.
Yeah, I like that. I like
Yeah.
that. Has there been any challenges with you personally staying grounded and emotionally healthy while leading, in this
Yeah.
particular way? I mean, it can't be easy.
Yeah. So here's what I've learned about myself. If things go too well and too smooth for too long, I get bored.
Okay.
And then I am not a good version of myself. At the end of COVID, my organization had reached a lot of goals and milestones, but to me, I was interpreting that as kind of plateauing. And because we were a reentry organization with repeat offenders, and after most of us had emerged from COVID, the prisons were still closed, and so we really couldn't start any new projects. We were just waiting for the prisons to reopen to service providers. So I left the story and I jumped in here, and so now I'm doing this. So I know I need to stay away from kind of when things get too smooth and too successful but the other end of that is, so I need a little bit of crisis. I need a little bit of challenge in my life to really be the best version of myself. But too much of that also can be debilitating too. And
Right.
so when we're running with too much crisis for too long, yeah, I can suffer from migraines and yeah. So
So your
what's
body
really
is
hard,
definitely telling you where you need to be in terms of your sweet spot.
yeah, and my ability to be in that sweet spot is not entirely up to me. So
Right.
so what I have is a good awareness of where the sweet spot is, but a limited ability to stay in that area.
Yes,
And
yes.
so
But I guess
that's
the psychological benefit or work would be at least knowing yourself
yeah.
and and
Yeah.
understanding those limitations, striving for the balance or the sweet spot,
Yeah.
right?
Well, and another part of this, and this has been really helpful. Are you familiar with the concept of working genius?
Don't think I can say I
It's a
am.
new it's a new model of uh, gosh, teamwork and training organizational development. And we actually had somebody come in and do a workshop with us. And basically, what it is that everybody's wired a little differently,
Hmm.
and everybody has a different job description. And if you break down the job description, there's probably a certain number of things that I get really, really excited about. And that's my genius area. It's the
Okay.
thing that I'm excited to dive into. It gets my best efforts, my best work. I have the most skills in that. There's this middle range of stuff that, yeah, I'm pretty good at. I wouldn't say I'm passionate about it, but I'm effective. And then there's the drudgery. There's the stuff of the job that probably isn't your strength. You don't like doing it. It's the thing that piles up on your desk.
Yep.
And what Working Genius says is you're not alone. Everybody in your organization feels that way. So why are we doing our work that way? If I can take everything, if I could increase the amount of stuff that are in my genius range
Hmm.
and reduce the amount of stuff that's in what I call the drudgery range, that's going to profoundly perfect the organization's performance, my well-being. And so in this last year, even though it's been challenging with the changes at the federal level and how they trickle down into the population we serve, um, it's been very invigorating to me, that and the podcast. And so I think in the last 6 months, I've really felt very invigorated because I feel like I'm working in that range that really excites me.
Yeah.
Um, it's a little bit hard in some departments to implement. Like for instance, if your payroll department or your finance department might have an AP clerk and an AR clerk. I don't know how many changes you can make in their job responsibilities and get stuff done. But in certain areas, we've been able to make that work. We had that in food service, that we had a director of food service who's retired, and he was leading the department. And then we found out he hates administrivia and doesn't like being on the computer. And we thought, well, this isn't a real good fit for him.
He wants to be chefing or doing
Yeah,
something.
and so that impacted the way we look at hiring, the way we look at job descriptions. So we ended up going into that department and taking three people's job descriptions and carving them up and saying, okay, you used to do A, B, and C. Now you're doing B, D, and F.
Right.
A
Right.
and C are going over here, and it actually has been very effective. So, Working
I like
Genius
that.
is what it's called. You can find it on the internet. There's people that come out and train and do evaluations. If you ever need to talk with anybody that does it, we've got a colleague here in Chattanooga that is a teacher and a trainer for it. It's pretty neat.
Amazing. Yeah, that's good. I definitely will dig in and explore that concept. And like anything else, it's probably repackaging in many ways
Yeah, yeah,
some philosophies that have existed previously. But I do like the idea of spending less time doing the things that I do not like to do.
yeah,
Um, and the list is long. So
yeah.
if
And
I
the
can
budget is always
incorporate
small.
yeah, if I can incorporate that within Fulcrum, that would be great as well.
Yeah.
So let's end on this question,
Okay.
um, and it is this: what do you hope other leaders inside and outside the nonprofit world can sort of take away from the philosophy of leading with psychological awareness?
Um, your your agencies are doing hard work with limited resources. The challenges are always present or growing. And you've got people that are passionate for some reason to work in hard environments to do what they're doing.
Mhm.
You are the difference maker. You can take their experience, their daily experience from a B to an A plus every single day. Um, they need to know that you care about them, that you've got their back, that you value them, and that you're looking for them to take an even bigger role in the organization. I think that's really what I would say.
And it's perfect. And I
Yeah.
am so grateful, Baron, that you said it. I'm so grateful that you took time with us today to share this perspective on leadership. It will be new and hopefully helpful to so many people.
Oh,
So
great.
thank you, thank you, thank you. And unfortunately for me, that signals the end of the podcast today. So, Baron, thank you again for helping us through this interpretation of psychology, bringing that into nonprofit leadership. It's fantastic. And I'm sure the listeners are really grateful and enjoying. It'll take them a ton of time to unpack this. They might have to listen to it again. But if you, as the audience, if you're out there and you like this content, please do subscribe to Lead for Good, this podcast. Also, check out Mastering Fundraising and also the Nonprofit Edge. These are all podcasts that really interview leaders in the nonprofit space and drill into some of their expertise to help all of you do better, lead better, and enjoy your work more. So check those out. And until next time, we wish you all the best and encourage you all to do what you can for this world by leading for good. Thanks all.
Thank you for joining us for this most recent episode of Lead for Good. Our passion is helping nonprofit leaders reach their full potential as leaders, and we sincerely hope this episode has been edifying for you. Please subscribe to this podcast to not miss any of our Lead for Good conversations. We welcome your feedback, suggestions, and comments via email at hello@fulcrumleader.com. Lead for Good is a production of Fulcrum Nonprofit Leadership. Please visit us on the web at www.fulcrumleader.com. Until next time, we wish you all the best and encourage you to always lead for good.